Good afternoon, everybody, and can everyone hear me? And I've just lost one of my windows. Maybe I close it. That's good. Okay, Darren, thanks very much for that. Okay, so this week is the final JavaScript week. And then after this week, we'll have 4 weeks of server-side programming, which is programming in PHP. And that's actually programming work on the server, so nowhere near the client's machine. But today, what I want to do is just cover regular expressions, which we'll also need in PHP. And I also want to demonstrate one of the activities in the third assignment, which is getting the scrolling to work. So as you're scrolling, the links will update. And also when you click on a link, it will also update. What I'm going to show you is just one way of doing it. And when I show you, there's even some code inefficiencies, which you might like to have a look at. And I've also tried to make it a little bit general so that it works for any number of links, not just for the 3 that are in your assignment. Now, before I do that, I just want to... Can't remember, I was going to show you something then. No, I think it'll probably be better if I show you it later in the chat session. Okay, so now, did everyone find? Has everyone found the Echo 360 lectures? No one's had any problems finding the on-campus lectures in Canvas? So one thing that the lecture covered was a slightly different way of writing JavaScript event handlers. Instead of them being inside the HTML, there's an alternative way of basically putting that into JavaScript and setting the on-click property, if you like, of my button to be a function name. And one of the problems is that there's no parentheses, so it's very hard to pass parameters. It's not impossible. So the way around that is to look at the event, and from the event you can get a lot of information. And in the example, I'm actually going to be logging information to the console, and so you can actually see that information. Actually, I do remember what I was going to show you. So if you haven't noticed already, I have dropped in the WP1937 assignments folder, I have dropped an example lunardo.html. So that's basically the basics. And in off screen, I've sort of got a prepared solution, and I'll be updating the basic solution with the final solution. And hopefully it'll go well. I did practice before, but I have a habit of stuffing up when things are live in front of a live studio audience. So a couple of students are playing around with these adding event listener methods. So if you want to stick to this this kind of programming for assignment 3, you're more than welcome. It's not a requirement that you do this, but sometimes there is a slight problem that when you add event listeners, there's a default functionality. So one issue when I'm scrolling, the every element on the page responds to the scroll event, even if it's not necessary. And I've got a couple of examples of that. And you can turn you can turn that off. So if you want something to respond to an event, it may be a click or a scroll or something like that, you can stop the propagation or prevent the default so that it won't go any further. And if you have a look at the cute kitten example, when you scroll on the kitten, the page doesn't scroll because the scroll event is stopped by that picture of the kitten. And this is how I do it. Basically, I'm adding an event listener called the wheel, and I'm calling a function, and I'm passing a parameter. So if you do need to pass parameters, this is one way of doing it. And you can prevent the page from scrolling when, say, an image has a scrolling event. So some of you may want to try and put that in your assignment as well. So particularly if anyone's building any modal boxes, that's sometimes a nice thing to do. And I've got some examples, some sort of set timeouts. So if you want to do some basic animation in your page, you can set these timeouts in intervals, but all of these are advanced tasks. I think, did I have an example? Can't remember if I've got an example here. Oh, there we go. Yes, I thought it did work. You have to look out. Sometimes they work. So I've got this little animating face here that's laughing and frowning. So I've got some code for that, like an array here. This is great with HTML5. Emoticons are legitimate characters, so you can copy and paste them. We haven't got to the stage where there can be variable names. That would be just ridiculous, but some programming languages allow you to do that. But you can certainly paste characters into an array, so that's very nice. So regular expressions. So can I just have a show of hands of people who have looked at regular expressions? And the second follow-up question is obviously, does anyone have any questions, or does anyone have any panicky questions or things like that? So the examples I've got initially follow on from that scientist called Steve example. So what I'm doing is protecting the form from invalid input, and popping some of those, instead of using JavaScript, I'm actually moving, because before HTML5 we had to do everything in JavaScript, and there's a pattern attribute in text-based inputs that allow you to put in a pattern, and the form will detect that the input is actually invalid, which makes coding a lot easier. So Andre, you're saying you've done a little bit. They are fun. Oh, definitely fun. I think Tim's comment is probably more reflective of how people really feel about regular expressions, but they do save a lot of time. So I've had students in the past actually do string processing and go through every character in the string, and if they detect a certain character, they continue looking for another character. And regular expressions were invented to cut down on all that programming. So if you invest the time in regular expressions, especially some simple stuff, you will find a lot of, like this, just make sure that the first name is Steve and that Steve has some sort of a surname. And certainly does help with some basic form validation. So this is the example. So instead of writing JavaScript, we can just pop it in the pattern. Note that there's no start and end elements. So that detects the start of the string, that detects the end of the string. The pattern, for some reason, is a whole string match, so you can't look for a partial match, which someone made the decision to do that, and so that's what we're sort of stuck with. And instead of writing JavaScript to style an element, and we'll be looking at a little bit of element styling with JavaScript in a moment, or later on in tonight's chat, you can say input, and any input that has an attribute called pattern, if it's invalid, so we're not going to affect radio buttons or password fields. Oh, actually, no, password fields can have a pattern. I think that's sensible. You can then just pop in the style with that pseudo class, which is a real time saver, as I say. I've got some questions, and I've got an example here, so you can type something in there that, instead of being styled by JavaScript, as we did last week, is being styled using HTML5 instead. So in your assignment, I'm happy for you to use the pattern attribute, but if you do want to write JavaScript to do client-side validation, you can do that as well. So there's no expectation client-side in assignment 3. But here's the JavaScript examples for doing it in JavaScript. And I've tried to be gender sensitive. No, I'll say that again. I'm even being gender insensitive. So if your name's Stephanie, you still have to. Your name is still Steve. So so I'm changing everyone's name to Steve. One little quirk. Unfortunately, Stefan and Stephanie, you have to be Stefan before you can type Stephanie. So this doesn't work. I'll just show you that. So this doesn't work on input, as we saw last week, because I can't type Stephanie without typing Stefan. So, oh, how did that happen? I'll try that again. I was accidentally tabbed to the next field there. So if I type Stefan, changes it to Steve. So what I'm doing is I'm triggering this event with the onBlur event. So when I leave the field, this this runs. So I replace any of these. So Stephen or Stephanie or Stefan or Steph Annie, and I replace it with the name Steve. Sometimes you want negated matching, and I just want to draw this to your attention, because whoever created regular expressions, they kind of like Alan Turing sort of people, very high functioning, and they decided, instead of using the exclamation mark, they just decided to reuse the hat character. So when it's outside square brackets, it means start of the string, but if it's inside square brackets, it should be, that means not A to Z lowercase. It'd be nice to get an update, so that's an exclamation mark, so that it's more compatible with today's standards, but just for historical reasons, I think they've stuck with this hat and not updated it. There's always the issue of backwards compatibility, but I think having an exclamation mark there would be a nice transition thing. So I have some examples, so please practice. One thing you'll notice in the lecture notes, color and color, always kind of someone's always helpfully pointing that out to me, that I'm spelling color wrong. But if you want to do a sort of let's just say spell check for American and English language documents, you can allow both cases just by using this regular expression. Is anyone struggling with the idea of meta characters? So meta characters are characters that mean something. So quotes, for example, quotes are meta characters. So when you type a quote, you mean a quote. When you type tab, you mean a tab. And when you press enter, you mean enter. So you can't sort of have that in a string. And so in regular expressions, if you want to escape a character, so if you've got a literal character and you want to escape it, then you can then look for that specific character. And likewise, this works for literal characters. So this is a new line character. So when you press enter, that's this character, a tab character, or a digit. Instead of typing 0 to 9, you can just say /D. So these are normally literal characters, but when you escape them, they become meta characters. And we've got these really nice ones. So if you want something that's not a digit, so if you don't mind it being an emoji or an Egyptian hieroglyph, you can use capital D, and that means not a digit. So just be careful that not a digit means over 1 million characters, not just text. So word character, they match all the alphabet characters, and they also match, I think, the underscore character as well. I think that's the only non-alphabet character it matches. So a lot of these slides were written by a lecturer called Falk Scholer, and he's very much into search technology. So he's very much a specialist with regular expressions. So a lot of these are probably a little bit advanced, but they might help you fully understand how regular expressions work in general. Now, POSIX classes, these aren't supported in JavaScript, but they still are supported in PHP, but I've got a feeling they're likely to be retired at some point. One really nice one I liked was this one. So if you wanted a punctuation character, you use this. In JavaScript, you just have to basically mash the keyboard and select them all. But if you have a look at the ASCII set, all the punctuation characters are grouped together. So it's you can put it in square brackets. You know, I think there's just like 3 groups, I think, that you really need to worry about. This is a really good website. It's very friendly. If you want a sheet to print out and maybe, you know, take with you to the exam hall, obviously put it in your bag before you sit in your seat. And I think there's another one I've got in the cheat sheets, which is a little boxier than this one, but it's very comprehensive. So let's just have a look at the tute now. So I've got an example here, and I'd just like to ask you guys, in fact, particularly anyone who doesn't understand regular expressions, I'd just like you just to look at this and just take a guess as to what this pattern might be attempting to detect. And yeah, Darren's just posted about how there's a lot to head around in JavaScript, and it's quite a shame that we really only get 2 weeks to spend on JavaScript. I think you could almost have a whole course. There's just so many things you can do with JavaScript. So Tim, you're saying a phone number. That's very good. If you can be a little bit more specific, it might be a particular type of phone. And if you ever ask a question like this on the exam, and it's say worth 2 marks, you can guarantee that phone will get you 1 out of 2. Tim saying mobile phone, that's excellent. And the full answer, obviously, is Australian phone number, or a phone number in Australia. This one kind of gives it away. So actually, I wonder if I can make this just a little bit bigger. Yeah. So how this works, so if you have a look at the blue, this one's the easiest one. So it's detecting the number 04, and in regular expressions, just a single pipe character means or. For some reason, and is not in regular expressions. It's something that's really missing. And if you ever go onto Stack Overflow, there's lots of people asking about that. But for some reason, yeah, and doesn't exist. So we've got or, and brackets, these blue brackets, these would be meta characters. So round brackets actually mean something. But because I'm escaping them, they are actually blue. Actually, I'm going to boost this to a little bit bigger. Let me try and get that in the middle. So this is why these ones are blue. It's because they've been escaped. So I'm looking for 04 in brackets. 04 is a number or, and plus means something in regular expressions. It means one or more characters. So I'm escaping it. So I literally mean the plus key on the keyboard. So plus 614. So the round brackets, these look for things as an atomic unit. So it's basically, instead of looking at this one letter at a time and ticking things off, it basically looks through the whole substring, and the whole thing has to be there for it to get ticked off. Ticked off in a good way, not as in an annoyed way, so to speak. So what it's doing is it's looking for this first, or this one, or this one. If any one of those conditions are met, then this substring is passed. And then what I've got is I've got this, but just in case anyone has noticed, the space character is not a meta character. So I can actually do this, and it's exactly the same because it's looking for a space. But I've just decided to put the square brackets there just so you can see what's going on. And if you wanted something like that, maybe a dash instead of a space, that's another option. So you can either have a space or a dash. And when you use square brackets, it means you're allowed one of those characters. So would anyone like to take a guess as to what this might be detecting? Again, it's a substring, so after 01, 04 or plus 614, I'm detecting a space with a question mark after it. And Aramith, you're saying, wouldn't I have to escape the question mark? If I literally wanted a question mark character, definitely, but the question mark means something, and Alexander's jumped in. This means I'm allowed 0 or 1 space. I'm not allowed 2, but basically I can have 1 space in this field. And hopefully those of you who've worked it out, it's a phone number. The next group may make a little bit of sense. Oh, Aramith, yes. Sorry. Yeah, the dash is very small in the chat. This is another weird exception. Normally, you'd have to escape the minus sign. When it's outside square brackets, it's escaped because the minus character means something. But oh no, wait a minute. I'm thinking of the dot character. Yeah, the dot character. You would normally escape the dot character, but for some reason, it's a literal character in there. And yes, in general, you should escape the dash character. But if there's nothing here, then there is a fallback, and the escaping is optional. But no, you're 100% right. That is the correct thing to do. Oh, make sure your slash is backslash as well. So that's another issue. So /D, that was a digit, and what I'm looking for is 4 numbers, and then basically that again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go over to, oh yeah, here's the other one. So this one, I think it's more comprehensive, and it's got some really nice kind of box mapping. But I'll show you this one because I just think it's a little bit kind of like more friendly. But I do know a lot of people that prefer this one for testing. So I'm going to pop this in. And just watch out for white space whenever you type. That can always be an issue. And then the next thing I want to do is, because I'm going to test a couple of things, so I'm going to go 0400 1111 2222. I'm going to tick the G. I'm going to say global. Oh, I think it's already matched global, sorry. So what this does, this won't stop when it finds one match. It will go through and find every occurrence. And I'm going to use the multi-line so that how this works. Strange, it's not detecting at the moment. What's going on there? Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm just sorry. Too many numbers. Okay. So whenever you're testing regular expressions, it's always a good idea to, not just stop at your first match, but to actually, test. Or does anybody like typing their number like this, sort of 0400 123 456? Because this one's not being detected. Oh, by the way, if I type anyone's phone number, I'm very sorry. I promise you I am just typing random numbers. Oops, what? I have to turn Spotlight off. So I've got a couple of examples, and I'm just going to copy these and make sure that 2 spaces fail, or maybe some spaces after as well. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get as many edge cases. So I'm trying to get ones which are complex, which should pass, and ones that are complex and shouldn't pass. And Darren, you like the 433. And of course, some people like it like this. That's another option. So what I want to just really draw your attention to is I'm going to swap back to the tute. This one is pretty good, but it does force people like Darren, for example, into typing 04 and then a space and then 4 digits, a space and another 4 digits. And it can be a little bit tricky. It's like, how can we write a regular expression that allows, not this one, obviously, because there's spaces on the end, or this one or this one. Actually, let me just put the two failing ones at the top, just so they're out of the way. What I'd like to do is write one that is going to allow all of these ones to pass. I think if you know, like, whoever has this number probably can write it like that, because they obviously either paid a lot or knew someone to get that phone number. Probably some CEO. Or no, not someone's CEO's phone. It would be the secretary of a CEO who has that number, I reckon. So what I want to do is I want to, and I'll copy this code down here. I know it's going to be silly, but what I want to do is really just work on this regular expression to sort of get a better version of it. So one other way of doing this is to basically use the grouping the atomic grouping parentheses. So these are the round ones. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to allow an optional space, and then obviously I have a question mark because I'm allowed 0 or 1 spaces, and then I'm going to allow a digit, and I'm going to do that 8 times. So that means no matter how you group your numbers, so if you have if you write your phone number like this, each one of these is a optional space and a digit. So this, it's actually a lot shorter, and it will basically capture any one of these numbers. It won't capture this or that, but it will capture that. Now, Aramis is looking for 10 digits. That is pretty much what we're doing. What we're doing is we're looking for, well, because we're also looking for round brackets as well, and possibly a +6. So sometimes it might be 11 digits, you know, or one thing with regular expressions is, and in the lecture I do say it's a bit of a trick question when you find it. Write a regular expression that detects a valid date. And initially you might think, oh yeah, that's pretty easy, like 2 digits / 2 digits / 4 digits. And then you might think, oh, you know, 99 / 99 / 9999 is, did I say 4 nines? That's not a valid date, because there is no 99th month or 99th day. So sometimes you can think a regular expression is the right way about going about things, but sometimes it can be wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to pop it back in here and see whether that works. And well, the other thing is, we'll see this more in the PHP section, because I didn't want to overload you with all the possible Java, regular expression work. But whenever you use round brackets, this is just a heads up. You can type $1 or something when you're doing a regular expression replacement. So if you ever need to like reverse dates, so Americans, they'll write the month first and then the day afterwards. You can actually, these little atomic units, these come through as $1, $2, and you can use them as in a replacement string to rearrange the string rather than replacing them with new characters. So Andre, you're saying that the regular expression didn't show in the chat. So Andre, yeah, I'm just wondering, are you talking to me or talking to another student? I'm just worried that I'm missing something. Oh, sorry about that. Ah, perfect. Okay, that's I've got to watch out for that. That's quite annoying. I think are you doing a look ahead by any chance, Andre, or that regular expression looks very complicated to me. And sometimes when you say between 1 and 3 digits, you may find that I'll have to test that out. Actually, why don't I just test it out now? Let's see how well it works. It is matching a lot of them, so that's pretty good. But it's not matching this one, so let me just see what you're doing. I wonder if I'm just going to... Oh, okay, so if I type in extra numbers, it will allow extra numbers. So that is a small weakness there. So that's the trap you can fall into. You allow 1 to 3 digits followed by another 1 to 4 digits, and that means a possible, you're basically allowing between 2 and 7 digits, and they can add up. Oh, it's the one suggested by the regex site. That's interesting. I think mine is better. So yeah. Oh, thanks for letting me know about that. I'll write them a note. So can you write an improved version? Hope you can basically see this one is an improved version. It restricts the number of digits to 8, but it does allow any kind of combination of optional spaces in the string. Now I've got a couple of people. So we'll start with probably the most famous one. Everyone knows Robert Downey Jr. Look, there's even one of him in a Avengers suit. So if we were detecting his name, one thing we can do is we can basically just look for alphabet characters, perhaps even maybe capital letters. But there are tools that we can convert strings to proper case. So someone can enter their name in all lowercase, and we can run a string that will just capitalize the first letter of each word. So so one thing we can do is we can just look for lowercase letters or uppercase letters. And obviously spaces, customers have spaces in their name, so we'll need to look for spaces. And Robert's got a full stop in his name, so we'll also have to look out for that. Catherine Zeta-Jones, I believe this slide is out of date. I've heard that she's now divorced from... Oh, no, wait. She wouldn't be losing her name, would she? Yeah, I think she's divorced from Michael Douglas. So I thought for a second that her name was hyphenated because she was married to Michael Douglas, but she's now divorced. So, but her name is Catherine Zeta-Jones. It's not Zeta-Jones Douglas. So that's good. Her name is still Zeta-Jones. I don't need to change the slide. Excellent. So similar. So she has a space, but she also has a hyphen. And we've got this guy who, string physicist. He's got a hyphen in his name, and people like O'Reilly and O'Malley and does anyone else know any sort of O hyphen names? O'Sullivan, I think that's another one. So we also have to look out for the hyphen as well. So coming back to this, and this is a fairly simple one. So we're really going to trust people. So I'm looking for A to Z, or capital A to capital Z. Make sure you don't do this. A to Z. Can anyone tell me why that won't work? So I'm doing lowercase a to uppercase Z. And just for anyone who knows why that won't work, I have a slightly trickier one, which is capital A to lowercase z. Let me just pull up. Cool. Yeah, Aramis, the capitals do come first. So A to Z, capital A to lowercase z, will definitely capture all the alphabet characters, but there is a small problem. And so this is, if you like, the original character set. Maybe? Okay, it's a little bit more than the original character set. So there's a couple of control characters, but basically all of these characters are in sequence. So these are all binary numbers going from, I think A is 60, 61. So whenever 61 is in memory and you say it's a character, the compiler will convert that to the letter A. Yep, Aramis, you've definitely picked it. So if you pick capital A to capital Z, you only get the capital letters. But there are these punctuation characters in between. And there's a reason for this because 60, oh no, sorry, A is 65, my bad. So it's actually 64 plus 1. And, you know, because it's a nice binary number, there's a reason why that was handy back in the days where you had 8-bit computers. So they had a couple of spots for some characters to bring this 26 up to, I think, 32. And then A, I think, is what's the next one? You've got 64, and then I think it's 96. I think lowercase a is 97. So that's a nice number. I think it's 111000. Another 0, and then a 1, and then that goes up to 91 plus 25. So that'll be 1, and that'll be 20. 96 plus 26. So that just made, because most characters in a file back in the 70s would be letters or numbers, it just meant programming was a little bit easier. You didn't need to do so much arithmetic machine language programming. And I've got a feeling, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, that doesn't work. Oh, no, yes, it does. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that there may be a reason why the numbers are in the position they're in as well. So one of the problems is all of these punctuation characters, they were just popped in the available spaces. So if you ever want to detect punctuation characters, you have to get this group, and then this group, and then this group, and then the other group. And with the old version of regular expressions, the punctuation set was just a lot less typing. You didn't have to think about it too much. So anyway, no point crying over the past. Times change and all that. So I suppose technically speaking, A to Z, this is probably neater, lowercase to Z. We're allowing them a space. Robert's got a dot in his name, so normally we'd escape that, but there's this stupid exception rule that you don't do that in square brackets because the dot has no meaning in square brackets. And finally, that hyphen for Catherine Zeta-Jones. So that means at the moment we're allowing one character and one character only. So I'll just go and get their names. Just show you that that's not working yet. Oh, hang on. Let me just put we're detecting the start of the string, and we're detecting the end of the string as well. So this is a whole string match. And I'll just grab the other ones. And good old Catherine. Is anyone old enough to remember Catherine Zeta-Jones? I don't think she's really done much acting in the last 20 years, I'm guessing. So Aramith is saying, can you just exclude alphanumeric characters? You can. Just be careful by excluding them, you don't sort of include emojis or Egyptian hieroglyphic characters. Oh, the other thing is this is very Western focused. So anyone with a Chinese name or a French name, like Renee with a hyphen, or sorry, an accent on the E, they can't register. So we're just sticking with something simple, but it's really just kind of like proof of concept for something basic. I don't want something too ridiculously. I don't want to make things too hard for everyone. So, and if if Cleopatra comes back to life, then we'll definitely have to bring in hieroglyphics. So at the moment, this is sort of working. So what I want to do is I'm going to put the plus character, and oh, I've got the quote character for poor Jared there. So hyphen dot, and it's just escaping the minus sign, just to be safe. Now, for some reason, if you do that, that should be fine, but just be aware that some browsers, and I think Chrome is one of them, it actually fails. So, or maybe it's just JavaScript in general. So it's just a little quirk that this dot has to be not escaped. Andre, yeah, you're 100% right. This regular expression would accept a space as the first character. So perhaps a better expression would be. In fact, I was going to lead this to this. If we wanted to be strict about it, we might say at least the first name has to be capitalized. Come on, guys. But as I said, we do have tools, certainly in PHP, that allow us to perform a proper case change and allow people to type in lowercase, and then the address labels will be nicely printed. So if we do that, that means that the first character must be from this set. And believe it or not, I always thought the minimum number of letters for anyone real was 3 letters. So Sia, and then I met someone who had 2 letters. And I thought, okay, I better change that to 2. And I kid you not, I think 2 years ago, I met someone, his name was the letter T, and that was his name. And I thought, okay, you're allowed 1 letter in the name. So now what we do, instead of having plus, because that would be 2 characters, that is now star. So I used to think that was reasonable, but yeah, now it needs to be 2. But another way of doing this is you can actually say, I want between 0, and I don't think really anyone has got more than 100 letters in their name. If they do, I'm really not interested in them coming to my cinema. Because if you make this last one unrestricted, technically, someone could, fill the buffer with kilobytes or megabytes of letters and just basically mess with your website. So certainly sometimes with databases, when you're setting up a database, so if you are storing information in a database, you would match this number to the size of that field in the database. Alexander, someone Welsh. They've got little hats above their vowels. So I'm just seeing if it's in that character map. Yeah, some are. O with a hat is there. The French have got little carrots to go underneath and all sorts of things. So the European languages, a lot of their characters are in UTF, the 2-byte UTF-8 characters. And but the one thing, I don't know if anyone is Welsh, they actually have less letters. They don't have the letter V, for example. What's another thing they don't have? I don't think they have the letter K either. So if you ever have a word that has a K in it in Welsh, they just use the letter C instead. And one thing, W and Y are vowels in Welsh. So it might look like there's a lot of consonants, but trust me, some of those consonants are actually vowels. I think what's I'm thinking of the Incas. They couldn't work out their language for a long time, and then they worked out the reason why they had so many characters was because they were being playful with the characters, and they would write them on top of each other, and they'd have characters hiding behind other characters. Some kid worked this out, and all these specialists in the field went, "Oh, perfect, thank you." Yes, back in the day where you had to say who every all of your parents, just in case you were a serf or a peasant with money. Okay, so coming back to the tute. So I hope that gives you enough information to answer this. So once these tests are complete, use these working regular expressions in your assignment. So yeah, you can make up your own, but please use mine as a starting point. So what I've done is I've given you, say, two basic ones. So testing the name and the phone number, and email, just say type equals email. JavaScript's, sorry, HTML5's field is pretty good. And there's a lot of bad regular expressions for email detection. And I know people who just get blocked. In fact, at one stage, I've got to fit. I don't know if I'm making this up or not, but I think something like Amazon or eBay, they actually blocked anyone with something like .au. So if you had .com.au, they just thought you were making it up. Like all addresses end in .com, and that I think that got fixed maybe about 15 years ago. So that's regular expressions. So what else am I doing? So a credit card. So not all credit cards are 16 digits. So some are smaller. And again, you have optional spaces. So that's similar to the phone number. And I'm not sure if I asked for a physical address field this year, but if there's another field, it would be based on the name regular expression. So I've got an example here, and I might just jump to W3 Schools because I'm too lazy to type this myself. And I'm too lazy to just go to W3 Schools and click on a link as well, which is pretty bad. So I'm going to post this code in here. So I've got a paragraph, birth year, and then I've got select. And instead of, and this is something you might want to think about, it is semi-relevant to the assignment. Instead of typing out a whole heap of options, I'm using JavaScript to generate some options. So when I click run, what do you think is going to happen? And I'll just make that slightly bigger. So in the seat fields, in the seat drop downs, I want you to say between, was it 1 and 10 seats? So you can save on cutting and pasting if you do this. So Alexander's saying list of year values. That's definitely the answer I was looking for. The only trouble is, oh, there's a bug in the code. Oh no. What's gone wrong? So that's my next question. What's gone wrong? And this is a very common error. I just want to point that out. It's not just some silly bit of debugging. I'll just move my cursor, maybe just place it there so it's out of the way. Yeah, this error is very easy to make. I even made this recently, couldn't work it out, and then I went, oh yes, I made that mistake again. Year is not a number value. It is because when you say new date, you create a date object, and then you get the full year. Now that might be a string, maybe, but JavaScript is a weakly typed language, so even if it was a string, it would be cast to a number. Curly braces missing. You're allowed to have no curly braces if it's just one line. Good guess, but it's not the answer. Let me just move my cursor just out of the way, just so that it's out of the way. I'm kind of hinting where the error is. So let me just hint again, and then move the cursor out of the way. Thanks for the tip about the live chat, though. I'm glad I've caught on to that one. Missing a semicolon. No, it's not that. I'll tell you what. I'll highlight the error because when we write a for loop, we're used to saying I is less than a number. But this is because we're always, this is usually because we're saying I plus plus. So we say whilst I is less than this number, increment the number. However, Darren's got it. Because we're going in the opposite direction, what we need to do is do this instead. So what we're doing is we're starting at the other end, if you like, and we're working our way down. Now I'll just check. It might be, I may have got this wrong, but I'm just going to check. So what I've now got is I've got this drop down field. So it is starting into 2019. That's good. If I'd got it wrong, it would have been 2018 or 2020. And it goes all the way down to 1969. So anyone born before 1969, we don't want you at our cinema. No, go away, essentially. Yeah, it is a bit of a delay. YouTube does encode it, so if anyone is joining the session late, they can actually play on, say, 1.5 times normal speed and catch up. So YouTube is doing a lot. They are retiring. I think, Hangouts Live. What's it called? Google Live or something. I haven't tried the new version yet, but I'm going to have to start using it either next week or the week after. I'm hoping that they may have improved it. I don't know. Maybe the same product, just rebranded. Checking I'm still live. So I'll just say, am I live? Am I live? I should have a little clock here or something. Okay. So I've got 969. I will say Collaborate. When I was using Collaborate, that would time out on me at least 3 or 4 times every chat, which was very frustrating. At least YouTube just gets slow. Okay, so well, hopefully I'm still recording. I'm still here. Okay, so if there's any audio or anything, just let me know. I'm still thinking about that TLDR lecture I tried to record. The whole thing was a mess. I was waiting for it to finish encoding before I tested it. Cool. So at the moment, anyone over 50 is being discriminated against. So probably a better number would be 150. I don't think anyone's ever lived to 150. So now we're not discriminating against anybody. And I think actually, it was either last year or the year before last, the last person who was born in the 1800s or recorded as being born in the 1800s died. So everyone alive now was either born in 1900 and something or 2000 and something. And yeah, it is crazy. And of course, all the 1-year-olds are at the top, which is stupid. So now let's have another think and say, what if we wanted to restrict everyone to, say, a reasonable age? Say, they're turning 18 this year. So let's just say the year of birth needs to be 18 years ago. How can we modify the code just so we chop out all these children? Actually, I better not go down too far. Then type a number and validate it. Yeah, we could use a regular expression. But I'm just thinking this drop down. Start at 18. Yep. So we're looking for the year of birth, and also this needs to update itself every year. We don't want to come back January 1st and change it. Aramith's got it. Yep, just minus 18. And now we've got something a little bit more sensible. So there are some people, I think, who can be 17-year-olds and join. Or maybe there are some 18-year-olds who have turned 18 and can't join. One of the two. So maybe that's 17. Anyway, so this is relevant. I know in Britain, for example, if you've got an alcohol website or a gambling website, you have to enter in your date of birth, and if that date of birth is not old enough, you can't enter the site, and that stops any 13-year-olds who never did maths from visiting the website. Yeah, basically a 17-year-old with a credit card. Yeah, we want to sort of, stop some people, I guess. So that's a little bit of a time-saving exercise, which can help you in your assignment. Hopefully you can answer these questions. And so I'll start the next activity, but whilst I'm talking about activity 3, I will look out if anyone's got any questions about the previous example. I'm more than happy to answer it. So in assignment 3, one thing we are looking out for is use of arrays and even associative arrays like this one down here. Technically, JavaScript, there are no arrays. Everything's an object, but that's just people being pedantic, in my opinion. And the other thing, quotes are optional, so you can have quotes, but There's a little bit of a fault in the standard that I suppose one group said, "Oh, we don't need these to be in quotes," and then in another standard it is required. So if you're doing any JSON, the keys need to be in quotes. Yeah, I am thinking, particularly with all this, iTunes and like family friendly sort of thing. It makes sense as long as there's a responsible adult taking the responsibility somewhere. It's allowed. I think I had this thing with Google Apps that as long as the owner of a domain in Google Apps was over 18, people under 13 could get a Google account. But I think technically I'm not sure if you're allowed a Google email account unless you're over 13. So it's just a avoiding liability issue, I think. So I'm hoping that everyone's done any introduction to programming course will know what a simple indexed array is. So the keys, if you like, to this array are 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So numbers 2 will return 2 because 2 is actually the third element in the array. So I just sort of threw in a bit of a trick there. The first element is 0, and that's an easy mistake to make. So always think of this as the 0th element, this is the 1th element, and the 2th element, etc. But we'll see that this is a slightly, let's just say, safer way of setting up an array. So instead of having numbers where you're not the number 0 doesn't really relate to anything. It's safer to have what they call in Java a hash map, or an associative array, which is what they call it in PHP and other languages, where you have a named key, and when you provide that, a value will be returned. And particularly with web form processing, data comes through as name value pairs. And setting up these kinds of arrays does save a lot of time rather than setting up multiple functions, multiple disparate variables. If you have everything in a data structure, it's a lot easier to extract the right element. So in Java, there's two ways of accessing an associative array element. So based on something like this, so you have numbers, square brackets, and you supply the index. You do the same thing, but you provide the string. So this could be a variable. You could set a var index equal to the string 2, and you could say letters, whatever that string is. But if you know what this is, you can use this alternative notation. So this is, if you like, returning an element from an array, but there are no arrays in JavaScript. This is the more pedantically correct way, which is to access the letters property. So this is a bit like Java, some kind of object-oriented language. So you're accessing the property too, and it will return the value of that property. So the way that I remember this, if I know the name, I'll say letters dot something. But if I'm getting some information from a field, so let's just say I'm selecting a full price or a discount price. If I don't know the value of the field, it'll either be full or discount. I'll pass it as a string rather than calling this method. So a for loop, what we use for an indexed array, that's quite easy. Key equals 0, less than the size of the array, and key plus plus. And just to test that out, you can just write to the document what the key is and what the value is. But that doesn't really work for an associative array because we don't know what the minimum key is. We don't know what the keys are. Darren's asked, is that because it's key.value? Possibly, yes. Oops, what's that? Why did that scroll up? Yeah, I guess you're right. It's definitely, if you like, key is generally a memory location, and the dot value is what's inside that memory location. But if you have a deeper nested, like say a two-dimensional array, then there'll be a memory location as part of a value of a pointer, and then you follow that, and then at some point you end up with an actual value. Yeah, I think we're going okay for time. Maybe a little bit slow today, but when I want to open up the browser object and just show you that some if you like, some keys point to a value and other keys point to another branch or another key, and there's a value later after that. So anyway, in order to go through something more complex, and even this is like a simple one-dimensional associative array, we use the for-in loop, and it's very similar. So instead of saying key equals 0, we don't know what key is, and the syntax is a little bit simpler. So you just say for var key in letters, and that will return on each loop the key in the element. It'll go through the associative array a step at a time, and this line is exactly the same. And so you print out the key and you print out the value that's in that location. And I actually think this is a little bit simpler. And in fact, sometimes I'm actually tempted to use this even on an indexed array, but I have a feeling it's not always 100% successful. Now, web storage. This is something that's not relevant for the assignment, but it may pop up on the exam because we can actually store information on the client's machine. And if it's just something that we want to store on the client's machine whilst the client is active, we can store it in session storage. But if we want it to be more permanent, we can store it in local storage. And this is a simple key value arrangement. So local storage is if you like, an object that's in every browser, and you can set an item by setting the key and the value like this, or we can treat local storage like it's an associative array, just like the one we have up here, something like this. So we can either use this syntax or this syntax. So either of those methods work. One issue with local storage, and this is new in HTML5, and there was even a plan of having some kind of like database, local database, which some browsers support, but because it's not part of the standard, it might not be sensible to rely on it. So it might, if you're ever writing an application where you're sort of saving a mini database to the client's machine, just make sure that you're restricted to using a particular browser. It's a project, I don't know if it's abandoned or it was just put on ice in time for HTML5 to be released. So just got some examples. You can't set an item to be a number or a Boolean, and unfortunately you can't set it to be an array. That would have been wonderful. But if anyone is jumping ahead and looking at JSON, you can set it to a JSON string and kind of turn it into a string and turn it back into an object. But that's very advanced, and I'm definitely not looking for anything like that in the assignment or even on the exam with regards to local storage. So if there's a question on the exam with local storage, it'll be something fairly simple. So something along sort of these lines. Now, if you ever need to remove something from local storage or session storage, if it's just the one when the session is running, you can just remove that item and it will be kicked out of local storage. And in the lecture, I do demonstrate that these slides do use web storage, and there's a page here that yours should look different. And what I'm doing is I'm running a for-in loop on local storage, and you can see what's actually active. So at the moment, I've got these slides. Anything that's false is not being shown, but oh, slides lecture 0, is that open? That's strange. I don't know why that's true. That should be false. That's a bit of a strange one. The only one that should be open is lecture 8. Something is very strange with these slides. Let me just refresh these slides. Oh, I know what's happened. Yeah, this is a snapshot. So when I refresh this slide, I think, yeah, it'll get the correct values. So at the moment, I'm looking at lecture 7. So that set of slides is open. And everything else is closed. But if I open one of these, it's actually setting something in local storage. And this means I can shut the browser down and go away. And then when I come back, that lecture that I was looking at will open automatically. So if anyone's noticed that, or if I've already spoken about this, this is how I'm doing it. Whenever you click on these buttons, I'm either setting something in local storage or I'm removing that key from local storage. And when you do the for-in loop, and this is one of the problems with the for-in loop, that it finds everything that I've set, but one little quirk is there's some extra properties in local storage. So if you do a for-in loop on local storage, you also get these functions which are in local storage. Very handy. There's also clear. That clear clears it all, and it also gives you the length. So if you do like what I have to do is I actually have to use a for I loop. No, that's not what I do. What I do is I use a for-in loop, but I check the type of value, and if the value is not one of these, I ignore it, because unfortunately it does find these items, which is very meta, especially when you're getting the get item function and calling it on itself. I think it produces an infinite loop, so that's not always a good thing. And of course, you don't want to remove the remove item function from local storage either. So I've got a bit of a summary, and sometimes in the assignments we'll have a local storage exercise. It just, we obviously don't want to reuse the same assignments every time. So we tend to mix it up, and we'll have different material, and generally if something's not in the assignment, it's got a higher probability of appearing on the exam. So I've got a remember me function. So if you want to have a play, so if you've finished assignment 3 and you're bored, Because one thing I was thinking about was introducing a sort of like membership area where you'd remember the person and maybe pre-fill the address or phone number. And but yeah, we just ran out of marks, so I didn't want to put any more work in there. And finally, there's a question here, which is, oh, what's this? Looks like a TR to finish it. I think this is something I was, because I'm talking about this very soon. So, but I think I popped that sometime. I usually say TR to do, so I recognize it, but I have forgotten what this means. Let's just skip over that. So before local storage, so this was HTML5, the only way we could do anything was to use cookies. And cookies are always sent to the server, whether the server needs them. So it's a slight security issue having cookies, because cookies are always sent. But we'll see in maybe week 9, maybe week 10, that the way PHP tracks who you are is PHP will create a session cookie, which should be very, very hard to guess. And this is true of pretty much any website that uses security. They'll use a session cookie, particularly if it's transmitted over HTTPS. It'll be totally safe, or except from Russia, of course. So as long as it's encrypted, it should be safe. And whenever you send a request, that cookie will go along with it, and the server will know that it's you or somebody clever enough to crack your session. But we'll look at that very soon. So cookies are still used; they still have a purpose. But for most work these days, developers are very much encouraged to use local storage when, saying, having a client-side shopping cart or a wish list, or settings like remembering which slides you're opening. Okay, so moving to this thing here. So window on scroll is what you need in order to get the scrolling function working in the assignment. And I've got the code open here, so lunardo.html. And let me just show you that is in not the Tutes and Labs, but the assignments folder. That's right. So what I've got is I've got it here. So if you go to your version of the drive, you can open it with, and this is crazy, it's like I want to open it with Google Chrome, and it should open with Google Chrome. If it doesn't, I'm very sorry. But hopefully when you do that, it will open. I can't obviously copy this link because it's a local file, but the other option is you can paste that code into a code editor and then save it as a HTML file and open it properly. So what I've got is, now this is similar to your assignment. In fact, if anything, it's a little bit more complicated. So what I've got down the bottom, I've got just some style, maybe even some solution, A2 solution code. Let me just close that. And now the assignment is looking for 3 links. I think a minimum of 3. Some of you may have put in a 4th one, but there should be about us, the seat prices, and the now showing. So what I'm going to demonstrate is something that's a little bit more complicated, and it is, if you like, the general case. So what I'm hopefully going to show you will work for any number of links here. I'm just going to grab a quick sip of water. And I'm just looking at the solutions I prepared earlier on my other screen, just so I know where to start. Okay, so all the code is going to be between these script tags, but I'd very much like it if you move this to an external file, just for neatness. But yeah, that's just encouraging you to do the right thing by the assignment. So I've got window on scroll. So now this is another thing. If you haven't structured your document like mine, this won't work, and you'll have to do something a little bit more complicated. So you'll have to sort of structure an array that has all of the navigation links inside it. But because I've got my navigation element here and all my links are first descendants, like immediate descendants, I can use the document get elements by tag name, nav. So first of all, I'm looking for all the elements that are the tag name navigation. And then I want the first version, the first one, but there's only one, so it's an array of one element. And then I want the children in that array. So that will return an array of elements, and it will be all of these hyperlinks. So the good thing about this code is in one line, let me just shrink that a little bit. In one line, what I've done is I've got all the navigation hyperlinks, not all the hyperlinks on the page, just all the navigation links in the navigation. Sorry, all the links in the navigation element. And I do the same thing for the main. And again, if you've structured your main slightly more complicated than I have, you'll need to do a little bit of work. So you'll have to set up your own array to make this work. But because I've structured mine like this, I can say get elements by tag name main. And again, I just want the first element that's called main. There should only be one, but there you go. And I want all the children that are in that element. So that will return an array of all of these articles. And another thing to note, they have to be in order. So this one links to this one links to this one links to this one. So if this one links to that one, it won't work. You'll have to reorganize your articles or sections. Some people are using sections to, or even divs. Some people are using divs to get that all working. So for me, it's very simple. So just 2 lines of code will return these 2 things. So this is a numeric indexed array. So I equals 0. I want to go right to the end of the nav links, and just get me started, I just want to say, just print out the ID of the element. So A, B, C, wait a minute. Yeah, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Oh, that's not good. If you're looking at this at home, I'm just updating. I did a bit too much copying and pasting there. Let me check the official solutions. Yeah, better fix them there as well. Good catch. That's the thing about web browsers. They don't throw any compiler errors. So if there's a mistake, they'll just try and do the best they can for you. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not good. So let's have a look at how this works. I'm going to hit refresh. Now, that change should actually be pushed down. So if you're like me, you've got the, what is it called? The Google. They changed the name of it recently. The cloud backup and storage. It used to be called the G Drive, but now it's the backup and storage app. Okay. So let's have a look at the console. And click on the console, and whenever I scroll, what I'm doing is I'm printing out that block of text. So as article A goes off screen and article B goes off screen, you can see that these numbers are getting smaller. Sorry, and also getting negative. And this is a fairly obscure. Let me get rid of that. Backup and sync, that's what they've renamed it to. I've got this open twice. Let me just, got too many things open at the moment. I'm getting confused. Oh, by the way, regex 101, that also, I think, uses local storage to store what you last typed. So if you ever come back to regex 101, it also does that feature of remembering what you were doing last. So back to brackets. Maybe I'll make this a little bit smaller so that this pokes up behind. That should work. So I'm console logging articles I and its ID, and then because I want the string, and then there's a function called get bounding client rect, or technically it's a method, and so that method returns an object. So it's getting pretty complicated, and I just want the top value. So it's going to be returning, I think, an object with 4 leaves in it. I always think of these things as branches and leaves. So you can think of them as pointers if you like. Returns a set of 4 pointers that are referencing 4 values. But I like to think it returns four leaves, and I just want the top leaf, and that tells me where the top of the box is. So when it's on screen, it's positive, and of course there could be things before the main as well. So the header area might be there. So sometimes the first element might. Sometimes all of these numbers will be positive. So it's just my simple example. This is equal to 0 at the very top. So the first thing I'm noticing is that the console, so I'm sort of debugging, and this is sort of jumping around. And so what I want to do is put in a console clear. And rather than type it and make a mistake, I'm just going to copy it from my solutions. So what I'm going to do is every time there's a scroll event, I'm going to clear the previous console output, just so that the console is slightly neater. So when I scroll now, I get this silly message, but I'm not getting like an infinite page now. So that's just a bit easier to see. Now at this stage, as I said, there's many ways to doing this, and I'm going to show you just one way that I selected. And I think I was actually going down a different path, which I might accidentally go down before I just remember I didn't go down that path. So if you've started this and you're not doing it this way, don't feel bad. This is honestly just one way that I have selected. So I'm imagining now that I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I know that I just need to sort of help myself out a little bit. And I want to create a variable, what should be active, or, which article should be active. And I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm thinking, well, when I first come to the page, in fact, if we look at the code, the first one is active. So I might as well say that the first article is active. So I'm just going to cheat and not do anything complicated, and just have that there. That could cause problems if you refresh the page and you're down the page, but I'm just going to ignore that for the moment. So, obviously, I'll need to think of something. So, so one thing, as I'm scrolling, I'm noticing that. Oh, sorry, I do need to say. Sorry, I do need to say this. I'm also going to console log. So inside this loop, does it go inside the loop yet? Let me just check my solutions. Yes, it does go inside the loop. Okay. I have a feeling it shouldn't be, but I don't know. I'll just, I feel like I'm starting to go down a blind path. Maybe it will be okay. Now that's an object, so that won't work. So I just want to print the ID, because every article has got, every article has got an ID attribute. So I just want to print out the what that ID attribute is, just so I can see what's going on. I'm going to save that. And I can already see that that this is a bit of a mess. And really, this should be outside. So again, what I'm doing is I'm allowing myself to make mistakes, and this isn't really very descriptive, so I do need to pop in a little bit more. Just so I can understand my own code properly. Oops, I made a little mistake there. Let me just pop that in a string. Always miss one character. This is the other thing. Keep the console log open. It will show you any errors. This bit won't show you any errors. So this is working very well, except for when the next section goes off screen. And of course, what we've got is, if you have a look at these numbers, let me just make these a little bit bigger. AAA should be active, but as soon as AB becomes negative, then the AB should become active. And if I continue to scroll, basically what we can see is AC should now be active because AC is negative and AD is positive. So if you like, there's a sort of, a step. So these are now off screen, and now AD is coming up, but AC is still on screen. It's just the top of AC is off screen. So an alternative way of doing this is to look at the bottom of the element. And if you've got breaks between your sections, and I know some of you do, you may have to also look at the bottom of the element, which in the back of my mind, I actually think it might be a simpler solution, but I'll let you go down that route if that's what you need to do. So what I'm thinking is, what I need to do is look at this, whatever this element is, and the next one. Darren, yeah, well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to step you through this. It may be more than one mark. It may be two, I'm not sure. I think, oh yeah, there's another mark to update the style. So once you've done the hard bit, there's a little bit icing for you to have. So in the loop now, oops, hang on, that didn't work. Of course, when I practice this, I take far less time. So I want this one to be this article and this one to be the next one. And I'm thinking if this one is negative and the next one is positive, then I want this one to be the active one. So because this one's negative at the moment and this one is positive, so this one is the active element. So my guess is what should be active just watching, Darren. No worries. In fact, one of the reasons why I wanted to demonstrate this was so that you didn't have to do all this on your own and go down blind alleys. So it was always my intention to kind of give away this so you can kind of get it working for your assignment. So I think what I need is, whoops, where's the if? And I'm just copying and pasting so I don't make any mistakes. So if this article, if the bounding, if the top position is less than or equal to 0, because when it hits 0, it becomes active. And if the next one is greater than 0, then what should be active is this one. Let me just expand that. That's just a little bit too big a line. So the indentation's a bit broken there. No, that's right. And I better put a curly brace there, otherwise it'll make a mistake. I'm going to be putting some more stuff in there. And let's see how that works. I'm going back to the top. A, B is coming up. That's good. AB is now the correct one. And I scroll down, AC, AD, AE, this is fantastic, AF, and finally, oh no, I've got an error. So what's happened is I've gone past the end of the navigation links, and I'm trying to get the bounding client of an undefined element. And I think if my mouse goes over this, okay, sometimes it get, let me just put in a, can I put in a breakpoint? Okay, if I had breakpoints, I would see that this is undefined. So what's happened is I've actually gone over the end of the array. So the problem is I've got the last one and I'm looking at the one after the last one. So I need to change this to be -1 because I don't want to look after. I don't want to look at the element that follows the last navigation link. So I'm just going to subtract 1 from that and see if that makes a difference. So I'm going to scroll back to the top, hit refresh, go back to console and scroll. A is working, A, B is working. And also test go back to A B is working, A, C, D, E, F, and then AA is working. So that's not too good. So now what the problem is the very last one, because it's got no one after it, it is not being checked. So what we need to do, and this is kind of like an edge case test, and you could think of something complicated, or you can think of a really simple kludge fix, and just think what I should do is I should check the last one. If the last one is ever negative, then I don't need to look at all these. If this one is negative, then I know these ones are really negative. So I can check the last link first, see if it's negative. And if it's negative, I'll set that one to be the active one. And I won't even bother checking these links because I just know that they're all negative. So what I'm going to do now is go back to the code. And I'm also going to do something else, which I forgot to do just before. This loop will go through all the links, even if I've detected that edge. So if I ever detect the edge, I want it to break. Keep hitting the caps lock key. Oh, gosh. So that will break it out of the loop. So if I have like 100,000 links, as soon as it detects the edge, it will break out of that loop and not bother testing all the other ones, which, you know, are known. So I'm going to do that one, and I'm going to pop in here we go. I'm going to pop in this code. So I only want to do this if the last link is positive. So I'm going to sneak in. If the last link, if the last article top is less than or equal to 0, because as soon as it hits 0, what should be active is the last link. Now, if that's not true, then I want the computer to do some work and to go through and work out which link is needed. So when I now press refresh, damn it, what have I forgotten to do? Else. closes that one, that closes that one. Oh yeah, that's right, because I've popping in that. So now we've got this is why proper indentation is helpful. Let's see, that's good. Okay, that's promising. So this is good. So AAA. So you can see that that break now, it's breaking out of the loop. So it's going to the next one. And if that one's not there, it's, you know, it's only checking them all if it needs to. And if I go right down to the bottom, AG, so it's not even checking. So now it's, as soon as it detects that that is negative, it knows that G is the final one. And just to let you know, there is a small bug. So if you refresh the page and you're further down the document, then the first link will be active, which may be incorrect. So it might even be better to check to see that that is positive, perhaps. I don't know. It's a little bit tricky. In fact, my mind hasn't quite got around how to do that cleanly. But I think there's a small code efficiency in here if you refresh the page and you're halfway down the page. So I'm hoping that this code, now that I've shown you how I built it, so I'm going to save it now, and I hope you won't just copy and paste it, but it's working. So giving you an example. Just be aware that the assignment solution, because it's only got 3, maybe 4 links, you'll find that this is not anywhere near as complicated as this. But even if it was, it's not too complex. So that's part A. Now there's just looking at the time. I've got 1 minute left. Now what we need to do is set that link so that it's styled to be active. And what I'm doing is I'm adding a class called active to whatever link that is. So in the style sheet, I've got a, where is it? Here it is. So any hyperlink with the class active that's inside the navigation element, I want the background color to be different. So totally transparent. And, oh, this is a bit of a bonus. I want the background color to take 0.3 seconds to transition from one color to another. So that's a bit of a bonus. If we had more time on CSS, I'd definitely teach all this cool stuff. So that will just give you like a nice little effect. What the hell was I doing here? Oh, that's right. I think maybe in a smaller screen, I've got like a single, I can't remember now. There's probably a reason for that, which I'll discover soon. So what we need now is we need basically to go through that list. And I'll complete the loop there. So we need to go through, maybe I should call this J, just so we don't get confused with the I above. When you use let, it does mean a local variable, so that I doesn't have scope here anymore. Yeah, I sent her the navigation on a small screen. I think I've got like a sort of crude mobile view. So what I want to do now is I want to go through the loop, through all the navigation links. And if the link that is active, what should be active, if that is equal to the one that it finds in the loop, I want it to I want to add the class. And this is the thing, a class can have more than one class. So when you say class equals, there can be multiple classes. So you have to add a class and remove a class from a class list. And I'm just going to post the code because it's 2 minutes past 9:30. So if, and let me just change the I's to J's. So I did have it as I, but I realized that it may get a bit complicated. So I'm just going to turn that to J. So if the one that it's found is equal to the one that should be active, then I want to add the class active. But if it's not, I want to remove the class. And if it's not there, don't worry, it's not going to throw an error. It's not going to say, oh, but it's already not there. This will just move it silently if it's not there. It'll just quietly fail. So let's save that, and let's see whether, and this is for the second mark, let's see whether that has worked. So as I'm scrolling, can you see that there is a slow transition? And you may think that the background is changing color, but I just want to make it clear that it's actually the background is just being transparent. Actually, some of these, it's interesting, some of these are on top of the line there. I've been marking assignments. Sorry, I'm still marking them, and I've finally found another marker to help me out. One thing I did notice is that some people's navigation was behind the content. So if you ever want to fix that, just turn this back to normal size. Just grab the navigation and say Z index 2, but obviously do that in your CSS, and then fingers crossed. Okay, it should be below. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Maybe 3. Let me just try 3. No, I'm not sure why this is going on top. Maybe the buttons are actually transparent. I've got a feeling that they are on top. It's just you know, the line color is coming through. Yeah, so if you've got borders, obviously it's obvious, but yeah, I just wanted a simple solution, simple exercise, so you could see what the basics are. So, hate it when I trip over my own shoelaces there. But yeah, I've been marking some assignments. I forget who. It was a very nice, kind of like old world assignment. And when I was scrolling, all the content was going over the navigation links, so I couldn't click on them, which was a bit of a pain. But I just added a Z index 2, and pop, they went above all the content. So that was quite easy, quite a nice, easy fix. So, really quickly, I did want to show you one more thing. So on the secure page, in the JavaScript area, the browser object details, this is the window object. So when you say window dot something, you've got all these leafs. So I call them leafs when they actually point to something. So window dot length is 0. I guess, does that make sense? I thought that would be 1, surely. But you've got these other things, which, if you like, it's a memory location, and then there's a memory location in that memory location. So it's pointing to another object. No name. Origin. So JavaScript knows what page it's looking at. You can see how big the screen is. My screen is this window here. So that's how big it is. Screen X and screen Y. When I've been scrolling, that's the value. What else is cute? Oh, and window dot screen. So if you say window dot screen, you've got the available height, color depth. So you can see all sorts of stuff about the client's computer. Mind you, only the client can see this. The server can't see it, but you can spoof the client and pretend that you know stuff, but you don't really. It's just the page is repeating back what it's finding. So you can see whether it's in landscape mode. So if you want to do something tricky, you can do something there with JavaScript. It doesn't need to be an iPhone app. And what else was okay, now we're getting into personal stuff. There's probably my password in there or something. But there's quite a few things there. So navigator, you know, what have I been browsing lately? Better not show too much. So there's a lot of information, and you just say window dot something, and the document is also one of those objects. So a lot to play with, especially if you're doing advanced stuff. This is how you can get a lot of information on the client's browser and device to sort of tailor how you're displaying content on their machine. So that's all I've got planned for today for this chat. And then I'm going straight back to marking assignments. So my life is joy at the moment. So are there any final questions before I close tonight's session? Whilst I'm waiting, I'll have another sip of water. So Tim, you're asking, any chance I could comment out that JavaScript? Are you talking about this JavaScript? Or this JavaScript? Actually, let me just move this page off screen. I'll just see if there's anything, you know, personal. No, actually, there's I've got a device memory of 8. I think that's the only embarrassing thing. History and location. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff here. I just scrolled past the browser stuff. Half of these things I don't even know what they are. I'll just paste this so you can check out your own machine. And you can use JavaScript to also work out the path and the host name as well. By the way, as you scroll down, the code for this page is just here. So we haven't got onto PHP yet, but I do echo out the code that I've written. I've written a function called leafer, so it goes through and just finds the leaf on something, but I think it's only one-dimensional. I really should replace that with a tree walker that will walk along every branch and return every leaf. So, but that's a fairly crude function that I've written myself there. So I'm just wondering where the document is. I can't believe I don't have the document. Yeah. So if you want to document right window, you should see all of these things. And I think the document will be one of those branches. Move that off screen now. So Tim, you're saying the JavaScript in lunarado.html. Well, I wanted to provide that for you. It's not. You may find that obviously it's not exactly your assignment. So you will have to make some tweaks, but I think it gets you about 90% of the way there. Anything like this, I'll just add this because I was referring to this at the beginning before I realized I shouldn't be talking. Anything like this. Oh, actually, the window's been constructed, so that function is fine, I think, at this point. But what I was saying last week is if you're referring to any of these elements, you would need to pop the JavaScript down here. So if you do have window on scroll equals function, that's probably safe up there, but usually if you have, say, document dot get element by ID navigation equals function, you'd have to pop it down here. So after the page, every element's been constructed, that's a good place for code that runs on startup in JavaScript. Oh, what's this? Just scroll behavior smooth. Not sure if that's working. So everyone knows, I should check, everyone knows that that Leonardo HTML5, sorry, that Leonardo file is in the assignments folder. So starting code is now available to you. Oh yeah, of course, I'm an idiot, yeah. I thought it was smooth scrolling when you actually scroll. So if you click, yeah, you get that. And this transition as well. Oh, this is cute. Like little lights there. Just make that small. I just want to see the... Oh yeah, that's what I did. Yeah. So that's more like your web. That's more like your assignment. Okay, so well, we've gone for a little bit longer tonight, but that's totally cool. Hope I didn't keep anyone out, keep anyone up. Now next week, I'm working back on campus, and I accepted a late class that goes from 6:30 to 7:30 on a Wednesday, and then I remembered, oh, I've got my OUA class from 7:30 to 9:30. So when I talk to you next week, I will be coming from a class. So if I'm a little bit late, my apologies. But please don't panic if I'm 5 or 10 minutes late. I've just got to walk from one building to another building, and I may have some students following me, asking me questions. But I will make it clear that I do have another class and that I need to get to you. But it may take me a little while to sort of set up and get comfortable with a bottle of water next week. So my apologies if I'm 10 minutes late next week, but I will try and get to speak with you as quickly as possible, and fingers crossed I won't be sharing the room with any other OUA instructors who are talking. I think Paul might have a chat on at the same time as me if anyone's doing a course with Paul Miller. Maybe you're alternating with me, I'm not sure. But that might be one problem we run into. So I'll say good night for tonight, and I'll see you guys next week.